All right, let's talk about something we've all experienced, but maybe don't fully understand: static electricity. You know, it's that invisible force that makes your hair go crazy or gives you that little zap when you touch something. So, what's really going on there? I mean, who hasn't, right? You go to open a door and zap. Or you pull off a sweater and hear that crackling sound. And of course, the old stick a balloon to the wall trick. These things feel like weird little quirks of life, but they're not. They're actually clues to a fundamental force of nature, one that scientists have been chasing for, well, for thousands of years. So to get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back in time. And I mean way back. A lot of people think of Ben Franklin with his kite, but the story starts long, long before that, all the way back in ancient Greece. Yeah, you heard that right. The entire history of electricity, it starts with amber, fossilized tree sap. A Greek mathematician, Thales of Miletus, was the first to write it down. He noticed that if you rubbed a piece of amber with fur, it would suddenly attract little things like feathers. And get this, the Greek word for amber, it's electron. Sound familiar? That's literally where we get the words electricity and electron. He had no idea why it happened, but he saw it, and that was the first spark. But what's crazy is how long it took for us to figure this out. For more than 2,000 years, this amber effect was just a neat little party trick, a curiosity, nothing more. It wasn't until 1600 that a guy named William Gilbert really started studying it scientifically. He's the one who coined the term electrica. And then, another 150 years later, Benjamin Franklin stepped in and finally gave us a real theory to work with. So Franklin was just rubbing all sorts of stuff together, and he noticed something crucial. A glass rod rubbed with silk acted one way, but an amber rod rubbed with fur acted the opposite way. So he made a decision. It was totally random, but it was genius. He just decided to call one type of charge positive and the other negative. That's it. That simple choice gave us the language we needed to finally start understanding the rules of this invisible game. Okay, so Franklin gave us the big picture, positive and negative, a massive leap, but he still didn't know what was actually causing it. It would take another century and a half to peek inside the atom and see the real source. So let's jump forward and look at the modern science. At its core, what is electric charge? Well, it's not some kind of magic juice. It's a basic, fundamental property of matter itself. Just like an object has mass, it can also have charge. And that charge is what makes it feel a push or a pull when it's around electric or magnetic fields. So where does it come from? We have to zoom way, way in, down to the atomic level. Every atom has protons, which are positive, and electrons, which are negative. Usually there's an equal number of each, so everything is perfectly balanced and neutral. But, and this is the key to everything, when you rub two things together, you can actually scrape some of those electrons off one object and stick them onto the other. That imbalance is static electricity. It's all about electrons on the move. Okay, now here's where things get a little weird, but really cool. For a long time, people thought charge was like water, a smooth, continuous fluid. But it's not. A physicist named Robert Millikan proved that charge is quantized. Basically, it comes in tiny individual packets. It's more like money than water. You can have 1 cent, or 2 cents, or $1, but you can't have half a cent. Charge comes in these indivisible little chunks. And that is the exact size of one of those packets. It's called the elementary charge. I mean, look at that number. It's unbelievably tiny. But that little pocket is the absolute bedrock of all things electrical. Every single electron has exactly one negative unit of this charge, and every proton has one positive unit. That's the atom, the building block of it all. All right, so we've established that we can have a buildup of these charges. But wait a minute. What's the difference between a balloon sticking to the wall and the electricity that's actually powering the device you're watching this on? It's really simple. Is the charge just sitting there, or is it going somewhere? This table lays it out perfectly. Static charge is just a bunch of extra electrons hanging out on a surface, not really going anywhere. It's measured in coulombs. Think of it like a dam holding back water. It's pure potential. Electric current, on the other hand, is when you open the floodgates and those charges start moving. That flow is what we measure in amps. So one is a pileup, the other is the flow of traffic. So let's go back to that doorknob zap. What is that exactly? Well, that's the moment static charge turns into electric current. Your body has collected a bunch of extra electrons, creating that static buildup. When your hand gets close enough to the metal doorknob, all those electrons make a frantic leap to get away from each other and balance things out.
For that tiny split-second spark, a current is flowing right through your finger. That's the shock you feel. Okay, so a little shock might be a nuisance. But what if we could control that attraction and repulsion? Well, we did. And it turns out static electricity is the invisible hero behind some really incredible modern technologies. Seriously, the list of uses is amazing. Take car painting. They give the car's metal body one type of charge, and the tiny droplets of paint the opposite charge. What happens? The paint is practically pulled to the car. It wraps around corners, gets into every crevice, and creates a flawless finish with almost zero waste. Air purifiers do the same thing. They charge dust particles so they stick to a collector plate. Even farmers use it to make pesticides cling to plant leaves instead of just drifting away in the wind. But maybe the cleverest use of all is inside a photocopier. It's basically a magic trick using light and static. First, a big drum inside gets a positive charge. Then, a bright light shines the image of your document onto it. Wherever the light hits, the white parts of the page, the charge gets wiped away. But the dark parts, the text and images, stay charged. Then, a negatively charged black powder, the toner, gets sprinkled on. And, you guessed it, it only sticks to the positively charged parts. That pattern of powder then gets transferred to a piece of paper and melted on. It's just brilliant. But for all the cool things we can do with it, this force has a dark side, a really dangerous one. Because when that static charge builds up to really, really high levels, the spark it creates isn't just a little zap. It can be, well, it can be catastrophic. And here's why. Every spark, no matter how small, carries energy. And if you have a big enough spark in the wrong place at the wrong time, like around gasoline vapors or a cloud of fine-grained dust in a silo, that energy is more than enough to ignite it, and the result can be a massive fire or a deadly explosion. Just look at the scale of energy we're talking about here. It's wild. A spark so tiny you wouldn't even feel it, just 2 nanojoules, can fry a delicate microchip. But then look at the zap you get from your car door. It feels like nothing, right? A quick annoyance. That shock can be 60 million nanojoules. That's thousands of times more energy than what's needed to ignite hydrogen gas. Think about that. All that power built up just by your shoes scuffing on the car seat. And these hazards aren't just theoretical, they're very real. I mean, lightning is the most epic example, right? It's just a gigantic static shock in the sky. But think about pumping gas. That's why they tell you to touch metal before you start. A tiny spark there could be disastrous. The same goes for grain silos or even in operating rooms. And for companies that make electronics, preventing these tiny invisible sparks, what they call ESD, is a constant multi-billion-dollar battle. The good news is we've gotten really smart about taming the spark. For instance, have you ever noticed you get shocked more in the dry winter air? That's because humidity in the air helps bleed the charge away safely. So in sensitive places, they just control the humidity. For electronics, workers wear wrist straps that are connected to the ground, giving any static charge a safe exit path. It's all about giving that charge an easy way to escape before it can build up and cause trouble. So when you boil it all down, from the Greeks with their amber all the way to a modern factory floor, it all comes back to one fundamental rule of physics, the law of conservation of charge. You can't create charge, and you can't destroy it. All you can ever do is move it around. Every single thing we've talked about is just the story of separating those little electrons and then watching them try to get back together again. And it's quite a story, isn't it? It really shows you the two faces of nature. On one hand, static electricity is a powerful, dangerous force that we have to be incredibly careful with. But on the other hand, it's a subtle, ingenious tool that we've learned to use to build our modern world. It's both a danger to avoid and a helper we rely on every single day. So we've gone from noticing a weird thing with amber to precisely controlling individual electrons to make our lives better. It's been an incredible journey of discovery. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? As our understanding gets deeper, what's next? What other invisible forces are out there just waiting for us to figure them out and change the world all over again?